Welcome to our December 16th alignment session. So glad to have you all with us, and hello to those of you watching after the fact. We have a everything in perfect order serendipity that our guest today, Shima, had a friends and family situation come up and is not able to be with us. It is Friends and Family Month in the Lead in 3D community and in so many ways in the world. So she is right where she should be. And we get this bonus time now to really dig into the quarterly alignment planner, which we're doing in the membership this month anyhow. And so it's actually it's quite a meaty document, as I tend to sort of overbuild documents. And so I think it's quite fitting actually that we're going to have the time to walk through it together and that you all then will have the recording of it. Briefly, knowing that we all have different depths of relationship, my name is Nell Derek Debevoise, and my work is all about helping impact-seeking leaders to have your all, because over 25 years of work in the nonprofit and private and for-profit, for-purpose sectors, I have come to see, after trying very, very hard in a lot of different ways on 4 continents with 4 graduate degrees, that we cannot have it all. I know you all too are very hardworking and don't need much sleep, probably less than me, and are smart and all of that. And yet we cannot have it all. It's just not possible. But when we are really clear about the outcomes that we care about, and then really intentional about how we spend, how we invest our time, attention, and energy toward those outcomes, we can have our all, is what I've come to see and what we do in this Lead in 3D community. Because that is good for the world. It creates win-win-wins in these 3 dimensions that we talk about the outcomes. Me, my holistic well-being, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We, the teams, the organizations, and the families that we're investing in, and then world, right? That broader, bigger social or environmental impact, whether you are a certified B Corp like Rachel's company, Bigelow, and actually legally committed to positive impact, whether, Xenia, my goodness, those small and medium-sized businesses that MasterCard serves are generating wealth, and we know statistically doing so for a more diverse, non-white male set of business owners than larger corporates. And then, Matthew, your impact investing work in the education space is powerful and sort of a passion pitfall for me of our country is our education system. So know the power of what you do. And then Adam, you and I are just in that same boat, helping all these people do more of their impact, to say nothing of raising world-changing kids. So that is what this is all about. And so we call them these sessions alignment sessions, and the document that we'll look at is an alignment planner because again, it's about, doing the things with our time, attention, and energy, right? Not just the time on the calendar, but the attention and energy are really the X factors to get what we want in the me, we, and world dimensions, not because it's kind of trendy with millennials or because we're going for that ticket to heaven or, whatever else, but because it drives performance in 3D for us, for our teams, and for the world around us. So that's what this Lead in 3D community is all about, is doing that and then really normalizing it, right? It unfortunately, in my humble opinion, we're kind of still stuck with that Friedman doctrine of corporations exist to drive shareholder profit, period, end of story. And obviously, the B Corp movement and your work, Sonia, and your work, Matthew, and so many people in this community shows that that is not always everywhere true. And yet, I think it remains a potent enough trope, pressure, should in our media, in our business school education, Xenia, we know that world, right? In all of these places, it is very much normalized that, profit first and quarterly short time quantitative returns are all that matters, and they matter, right? No margin, no mission, is a real refrain. But I have seen over these 10 or 15 years of work with leaders like you all at all different stages of career, it's really powerful to be together with other people who also want their work and lives to matter. And so approach this all with that 3D approach of, yes, the team has to function, the company has to be profitable, but also we need to be taking care of the world so that there are customers alive to serve and plants and trees alive to print the paper that we serve them on and everything else we do, and me, right? If I overlook my own well-being, I am overwhelmed and burnt out, and I can do absolutely zero impact for profit or purpose or anything in between. So that's the approach. Um, the next piece that I'll say as transition into this document I'm alluding to is that I am, certainly in the kind of purpose space. I think about purpose, I write about purpose, that is important to me. And I operate at a very kind of practical day-to-day level because what I've seen for myself, first and foremost, but also with high achieving, high performing, ambitious clients is it's all well and good to kind of have that idea and it can be very motivating. And what actually matters is like Tuesday afternoon, what you're doing, right? Or on vacation, how do you show up with your family? Where do you choose to spend your vacation budget for souvenirs or hotels or whatever else? Um, and so I find it really transformative for people to actually look at the tactics of how we're spending our time, attention, and energy on Tuesday afternoon, hopefully in line with that big, audacious vision, but in a much more tactical way. And so again, the kind of themes of this community are, weekly reminders and then these quarterly check-ins. So I'm going to share my screen. Actually, I'll first um, put into the chat a Dropbox link for this Excel file. And so if you are so inclined, feel free to grab that for yourself and play along, either right now or on vacation if you're like that, or to avoid more feasting on your floor feast or whenever you want. But this is a freebie, I hope, goodie that has been refined over my last 3, 4, 5 years. Again, my own work as well as what I do with clients. And then I'll share it so you can see and we can walk through some of it together. Truly, again, please jump in. Some of this language will be newer to some of you than others. And so I invite you to ask questions because there's a lot of complexity and richness here. So here's the 3D alignment planner that I have created. Simple kind of name and which quarter you're talking about at the top. And then we really start with a sense check, right? And so that's a sense check in that kind of general sense. But it also actually, I really encourage you to go through the senses, right? What are the feelings in these areas? What are the smells that maybe come to mind or the sounds? Adam, you talked about music bringing you to life? Is there a song that makes you, that occurs to you in this? Is there a smell coming from the floor feast or that's been a theme all year? What might that be? And then just check in the 3 dimensions, right? So me, how am I really? How's my body? Tired, strong, hungry, a little overweight from an indulgent fall, whatever the body checks are, all fair game. But also, how's my mind? How's my intellect? Am I bored? Am I stressed out and overly challenged by something? Am I fulfilled by all the learning that I've been doing this year? Am I curious? Am I living with a low grade or maybe a high grade sense of worry or anxiety at the state of our world, right? That's a me thing. We'll get to the world later, but that's a me thing. Ksenia, did you want to speak up?
Um, sure. Yeah. I mean, maybe this is a session for me. And like, yeah, thank you for inviting because I did not know what to expect. But yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think I'm basically at a point of like stressed out and burned out and definitely do not spend too much time with myself. having, very, very demanding job, as well as two small children and, the rest of the household and whatever responsibilities. And I'm also happen to be from Ukraine, so dealing with a lot of also issues with the relatives since the start of the war, and still so there's definitely a lot going on. I think realigning myself to the point that I can have the me time, I think would be wonderful, because right now there's practically zero me time. So that's kind of the feelings that I'm having.
Very fair. I'm so glad you're here. Your gut, your word is also gut, at least for today. You knew to be here. And so real, of course, right? We see Adam's enthusiastic nods also with two young kiddos at home. And that's so real, and look, it's none of this is about shoulds. I have a whole chapter against shoulds in the book, right? And talk about that a lot. That's our theme actually in January, I guess, is shoulds and getting rid of them and letting go of them because there's just no space, to worry about the past. There is just noticing, right? And then a realistic moving forward of like, okay, there has not been much me time. And I have family living in a war zone and I am raising young humans and I have this very impactful, serious job. And so where can that fit? So that's all part of the game. But this first part is exactly what you just shared. So thank you for that of a sense check, and then obviously there's the we and the world here as well. And so what about we? How is my team? Whatever that is, whether you're a team of one entrenched in a larger company, whether you're kind of in the solo soulpreneur realm, Adam, that we share, and then family. What about those young world-changing kids? How are they all doing? What have they gotten this year? What has been hard and good? And then stepping into world, right? What is that broader community? So we talk a lot about it is not about the whole world. None of us can single-handedly heal the entire world. Is it Ukraine? For some of us, that might be very, very relevant and a world issue that is in our circle of influence. We actually can have some influence there because of personal ties or otherwise. For others of us, it might be in our circle of concern. I am concerned about what's happening there. And at this moment in my life, I do not feel that I have much influence, right? For right or wrong in terms of my job, my vote, my money, my affiliations, my knowledge. And so that is one of the things that I have, actually have to or have chosen to say, I can't spend my precious time, attention, energy there. Because if I did, it would simply be a dilution of my impact where I do have direct influence and concern, right? So anyway, the sense check is just that. And so if and when you dig into this document on your own, I encourage you to spend even 5 minutes is enough, but actually spend 5 minutes, set a timer. It will probably feel like a really long time because in busy lives, we don't spend much time just checking in. And dig into the senses a little bit, right? Is there a smell or a song for me? Maybe Ksenia, either like loud and stressful that there isn't space for me, or a relaxing, happy, joyful song that you love that would bring some of that me time in a 2-minute dance break that maybe your kids could be part of, or something like that, right? But I encourage you all to kind of do this sense check in quiet time and space with some sensory curiosity. No worries, Rachel. Feast away, and you will see the rest on the recording. Take care. Um, I include purpose statement here, very intentionally optional for exactly what I shared, right? It's great if you have a clear, motivating statement that talks about your why. Some people do, and that's really important for them. That's great. I worry more for people about purpose pressure. I don't know what my purpose is. I'm raising a family. I have this big job. I'm trying to be a good human. And I just think that's totally fine for now, right? I think the purpose statement can emerge over time if that's appealing to you. But I find that especially for busy, especially embedded in the corporate world, leaders it can be hard to start there. It can be more productive to start pretty tactically, which is what these next rows and columns are for. And so I leave the purpose statement kind of open. If someone has that, great. But this is the piece that I want to kind of share and give to you in our remaining time today, because I think I know it's really helpful for folks. And Ksenia being newer to this work, even though we've known each other for a long time, it might be fun for you to play with. And Adam, I know you've done some as well. But this little grid, again, it's about how I invest my time, attention, and energy. And then it's in these spheres of impact, which is a framework from my book that emerged really over the last 10 years of work with leaders at all different stages. Is very simple and very human by design, right? The quote, whether it's Mark Twain or whoever else it's attributed to, but he said, if I have more time, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. Right? If I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter, because when we have more time to really think and refine, we can get down to the nuggets that are most important. That is what happened for this over 10 years. And so the spheres are self, which is first, not accidentally, right? Because we just want to realize, are we doing anything for ourselves, whether it's sleep or momentary dance breaks or, whatever other practices there might be there. Second, friends and family, again, kind of the internal parts of impact that we don't think about as much. And then job. Many of us spend many of our waking hours at some kind of job that we are paid to do. And so, what are we doing there? Workplace is distinct from job, right? It's where we do our job, but there might be things that we do. If you're involved in the Women's ERG or a committee for Ukraine within MasterCard, that's not your day job that they're paying you for, but it is your impact, right? And so that's why I've separated job and workplace, because I've found that that is distinct for people. Community are those kind of non-family, non-work involvements. And then, of course, money, what we buy, donate to, and invest in. And so this isn't like, are you an accredited investor? Then you worry about this column. This is all of us, because if you buy anything, you can buy Bigelow Tea from Rachel, which is a certified B Corp, right? And so there are certain guardrails about how they do their business that are good for the world. So the idea here is a really simple brainstorm, all the things, whether they're daily habits, something you did once early last year as a resolution and never again, whether it's something you used to do in your childhood or in your last job that felt impactful, but whatever it is you do that has some form of impact on the world, whether again you hear that or see that or measure that, or if it's just a sense check that that ripples positively. And then once you've done a brainstorm, adding as many rows as you like. Obviously, these in italics are all just kind of samples to give you an idea, but clear those out and make them your own. And then I invite you to color code them. And so keep, right, straightforward. These are things that are working. They fit into your life. They have some impact to you. And so that is all good. Green is do more. I did this once. It felt really good. Or I do this once a week. I wish it could be every day. Whatever it might be that you want to increase and do more, great. This is my favorite one. Drop. What are you going to drop? Because again, this is a hardworking, ambitious, caring, well-intentioned community of humans who don't waste a lot of time. There might be a little, I know I have a little that I could claw back from Instagram or maybe the New York Times Games app, although that's kind of a nice mental break for me. But just get honest, about like, this is my funny example. It came up on a day a few years ago. I was working with a client and she's like, I spend so much time worrying about what I'm going to wear on a given day. And I just don't want to do that anymore. Like, look, it matters. We show up and people judge us. And so it's not silly or unnecessary. And maybe it needs to take less time. Maybe it doesn't need to take quite as much energy, even. Maybe it takes the same amount of time, but there's less fraught thinking, and you can just reduce the energy of it, for example. So be really brutal about drops. Find some fun drops. And the other way I encourage people to think about that is it's an experiment, right? Like marking that in this beautiful sienna orange color doesn't mean that you can never do that thing again. Like, I'm not watching Excel or Microsoft, I guess, might be watching somewhere somehow, but I don't think so. I think you're good, right? So just do it as an experiment. What might you drop like for a week? I encourage people to do in our programs. For 1 week, don't do this thing and see what happens. And if, you get arrested or fired, like, sorry, my bad. Probably that's not going to be the result. Um, but if something negative happens or you miss it, great, great. Bring it back with conviction. But give yourself the opportunity to drop some things so that you can add the really aligned things, or just be more energized about the aligned things and give them more attention. Defer is also, I think, a powerful and important one, right? Especially because this is a quarterly planner. There might be things that you want to happen next year. They don't all need to happen in Q1. There's so much energy and momentum of coming out of the gate like guns a-blazing with resolutions and 6-day-a-week workouts and better one-on-ones with my team and 5 books that I'm going to read, right? We tend to get into that mode in January. There are 12 months in the year. Summer can be a great time for reading, right? Because you're on the beach. And so maybe it's not a beach read, maybe it's a leadership development book, but there are things that can go in later quarters that don't need to happen right now. And for myself, this one is huge because if it's there, I feel okay. I'm like, okay, I'm not shirking that. I'm not dumping or dropping that. It's there. It's just not right now, right? I'm working on a book that'll come out next fall. I need to do some edits. I know that that isn't until March after I record my video of a keynote in February, which I need to be focused on 100% from now till then. And so I'm like, okay, the edits come in March. No problem. I'm not being irresponsible, not being unrealistic. They will happen, just not now. And so I don't wake up every morning being like, the book, edits. And finally, delegate, which works at home as well as at work. Even if you're a solopreneur, delegate to ChatGPT, delegate to a contractor, delegate to your spouse, delegate to your kids if they're old enough, right? There are ways to play with that. I know everyone has their own parenting styles and decisions, so no pressure, but I will just say I've had clients delegate very successfully to kids starting pretty early.
On that note, I wouldn't forget to mention now also that our tax accountant has told us that if you employ kids in certain areas, you can, as a business owner, get a tax write-off on some of that work,
I've
depending on how you do
seen
it.
memes about that. Penny, you're
I'm
a
gonna
lawyer. Give
start.
us some legal
I'm gonna
advice.
start as soon as possible. I'm listening you. I'm gonna
No,
start
no.
doing that as soon as possible, Adam. I mean, I don't know if 5 is early or
You can do it. You can do it, Cassini.
yeah, yeah, the
Absolutely.
little things.
It's great, right? And those are those win-win-wins. Like that's why we talk about all the spheres and talk about 3D is like what a great win for you as an individual. What a great win for the family of the kids, like having college savings, for example, but also having the sense of like earning money and learning what that feels like. So really, really encourage that. Um, so I'm going to stick to our 1:15 end time in just a minute, but I really invite everyone to spend, I think if you have 30 minutes to do this brainstorm, it really allows you to get beyond the surface stuff that you kind of know is true. And my favorite part of this for people, when you look at your 6 spheres of impact and you give some time and space to a brainstorm of all the things that you invest, the time, the attention, the energy that you invest in each of these spheres, trying to achieve what you care about in the me, we, and world dimensions, you see things, you give yourself credit, and you celebrate yourself for doing things that you might not have previously. And look, this is not about letting ourselves off the hook or kind of whitewashing our lives to be more impactful than they are, or looking away from the hard change that is for us to do, or the hard situations in the world that are very troubling and, life-threatening to plenty of humans out there. It's not about lessening any of that. And I know from psychology study, I know from my own life and experience, I know from working with clients that if we give ourselves some little dopamine hits and realize what we are already doing that has impact that we had not considered or looked at previously, It is motivating. It fills our cup just that little bit. It is not a fix for burnout. It is not a substitute for some self-investment, but it is really powerful to just have those little ahas of, gosh, I do really cool client check-ins, and that builds relationships and it builds my business and it is good for those people and that matters, right? Or it's significant that I'm on the PTA committee, even when the meetings feel like a total pain and really inefficient and too late at night, and I could be doing something else. It matters to me that I show up for my kids in that way. Or it doesn't, and I'm going to drop it. Also, a great answer. But inviting you to spend 30 minutes, certainly more if you have it, less if you can't manage that much, and really play with this spheres of impact grid. Add some rows, do a full brainstorm. Reminder that brainstorming needs no judgment. Everything counts, small, big, recent, ancient, personal, professional, all of it. Do a brain dump and really give yourself some credit for that. Um, celebrate all you do, and then you can go about filtering into do more, drop, defer, and delegating. So that's the spheres part, right? Those are all the inputs into our impact. And then we get down into the outcomes, right? So in these 3D sections, what are the highlights of what you want to achieve in 2025? A little more balance and me time, Ksenia. Adam, I know there's a lot on the business front or that Change the World kid framework for you as a professional and or in the world for your team, family and professional. So just put some things there. Again, I have in the notes, do not panic that these be SMART goals. I know we're all very ambitious and we can do that, but they don't need to be kind of, insanely quantitative, robust, trackable KPIs. If they are, great, fine. But don't worry about that for now. Just drop some feelings, some thoughts, some initial ideas there. And because this is quarterly, you'll get the chance to come back over the year. And then I do invite people, to do this overall, just a quantitative rating. I think it's important and valuable to throw a number on it. I would say 1 to 10, but if 1 to 5 works better for you, or 1 to 100, or, really this is yours. There's no external abst or objective metric for an overall rating in the self sphere. Turns out that's not a thing. So pick yours and do it. Again, with the repetition each quarter, I've found over, I think it's been 4 years now, I've actually been doing a weekly version of this tracker. And I can see how the numbers shift, and I'm pretty positive, I'm pretty optimistic. So they tend to be kind of 7 to 9.5. There's not massive variation, but it's just really, it's a helpful baseline to have. So play with that rating, a number, a comment, and then pick one sphere to focus on in the next quarter. One. There are only 6. Pick one and highlight it and pick 1 to 3 actions that will get you there. So just saying, Ksenia, maybe it is self for Q1 2025, and just identify some activities. Some things, maybe you just start with dropping things. Are there, dropping shame about the kids watching TV? You know what? It's a snow day. I did that a lot. I came out pretty okay. So don't worry about the Parent of the Year award. That's an acceptable choice. Maybe one of your drops is dropping shame about appropriate TV time for kids. Um, does that sound like a good idea?
Yeah, totally. Sorry, I had to step away for a moment because
Don't
I do
worry.
have them around. But yeah, but we did play in the snow a little bit. So,
Yeah.
being a snow day, we did get out. So trying to balance, trying.
Quality time, not quantity. It's so important. They'll remember that, not the other parts. I encourage you to do the same sense check looking forward, right? What would my sensory experience be if I did these things in the MeWean world? And finally, please don't skip this part, even if you have to skip some of the other sections. Pick some rewards, right? When you come back to this with me, with us in Lead in 3D, or just on your own in March, what will you gift yourself? What will you give yourself if you've done a lot of this? Not all of it, because perfection is totally elusive and unhelpful. But about, I use that 80/20 rule. If you can get through about 80% of it, what will you do? Something small, goofy, an ice cream cone or similar, something with someone else, right? Social rewards are really important and powerful. Another, maybe a spring play day in the snow or whatever it might be. Maybe you join them to watch TV and skip 30 minutes of work or whatever else. Um, and then something that's kind of, I do a lot of these, like a constructive gift. So it's a little less like frivolous, but it's like a book to read or a course to take or a coaching session or something like that. So those are the rewards as I think of them. So yeah, that's the simple, but not necessarily easy and pretty chunky, right? I see people spend ideally fully about 90 minutes start to finish on this page, and that can be in one session if you're so inclined and so lucky to have that, or it can be in a few different ones. And it doesn't need to be perfect. It shouldn't be perfect. The real magic is here on tab 2 when you copy and paste and do it again and look back and look forward and learn and evolve. And then on tab 3, when you do it again, right? It's really when this becomes part of our thinking and operating that we are conscious of how we're investing in the spheres and how that is getting us to the MeWe world that we want to see. So we're a little over planned time, but what a treat to have gotten again just everything in perfect order that Shima wasn't with us. She will be. I'll let you know as soon as we confirm when she'll be back in the new year, and we'll have a session with her, which will be also brilliant. But this was a perfect way, in my opinion, to spend today. Ksenia, such a joy that you were able to be here as well. Adam, great to have you kicking off as partner. And yeah, you have the document now. I'll follow up with it by email too. If you want to forward it, if there are friends or colleagues who would value this, by all means, spread the love. And Ksenia too, I'll mention in my email. But if the full community experience is of interest, we can hop on a call whenever you like and talk about that. It's the idea is, relatively low cost and time efficient way to hold this accountability, right? And have the invites on your calendar. Sometimes they are possible, many times they are not. That's true for a lot of members, but you'll get the recordings, you'll get access to the platform and get these documents more officially and regularly. So we can explore that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. I mean, this was very interesting. Of course, feel like I need a little bit more details and more information about, what it, but sounds, we can just catch up.
Yeah, well, it would be
Thank
great.
you.
It's
Thank you
really
for
nice to
inviting
see
me
you
here.
here, but I would love to hear more about your latest as well. And Adam, thank you so much. What do you think about you? This is the first time you're officially seeing the quarterly planner. What do you think?
I love it. I mean, it's work that I think is valuable. I also think it's important. A few things you sort of mentioned this, Nell, but it's one of those things. It's a living document to a certain extent, right? So if you're struggling with it, walk away from it, and then give yourself a little grace with each of the things on it. And if you need a little bit more space and time to think it out,
Yeah.
there's an idea that I love, maybe not at 5, but a little bit older, when you start to hand things to your kids and ask them to fill them out based on their perspective of who you are. And I think that
Oh,
there's some value that you get from that close community of people who know you better
good.
than anybody else to reflect back to yourself. It's not going
Yeah.
to give you all the answers, but it could give you a third of the answers that help you get
Beautiful.
what drives you.
Totally. Oh, I love that. That's really fun. I can imagine how interesting and a little scary, intimidating, but really fun. I mean, truth from the mouth of babes, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So good. So good. Well, thank you both. I know it has been a really intense year for so many of us in such different ways, and a bunch of intense years in so many ways. And so please also, more than anything, in some ways, make sure that you're just giving yourselves and each other some grace and getting some rest this season apart, along with caring for those little munchkins. But be well, take good
Thank you.
care, enjoy the play with this, and thank you so much for spending precious time with me, with us, with this.
Thank you,
Bye,
Nell.
guys. Thank
Take
you.
care. Happy New Year.
Happy New
Thank you. Bye.